We have distinguished panelists here. It's going to be definitely learning from them about the brands, but also how they see this trend of hyperactive consumers and how to satisfy the eagerness or the aspirations of them. I hand over now to Dilip for the proceedings of the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Femi. Okay. So essentially, drawing from the topic what we kind of spoke about, it's all about consumers. It's all about consumers looking for more. It's about consumers having impatience. I think consumers today are dealing with what we call attention deficit disorder. So they're moving from one thing to another, and that is where really brand partnerships can really come in. So what we are going to try and do through this panel discussion is try to investigate this topic further to understand that what's really driving these brand partnerships. What is going to make these partnerships really work? What are the forces, larger forces, which are making brand partnerships happen? And essentially, as we talk about partnerships as a concept, it's about being able to do more than what you alone can do. It's when kind of two or more brands come together, you should be able to realize a better impact, create a better experience with the consumer. And many times it could be completely unthought of kind of partnerships which can really bring tremendous value. I like to share from a personal example. One of my ex-clients has been Amazon India, and one partnership which I felt which made a lot of sense and kind of broke the paradigm for them was to tie up with Indian Post, because last mile delivery is a big challenge in this country. Logistics in delivery is a big challenge in this country, particularly. And when they tied up, they could actually be able to, they were able to reach out and do things which other e-commerce players were not able to do. To Indian Post, it gave them a perfect opportunity to kind of get connected with a brand which was the happening brand, which is like the latest buzzword, which is like the latest thing to happen. So that's a good example of the kind of partnerships that one can really form. What I would like to do is look at, and before we kind of get on to others, I'd like Amit to touch upon the fact, because Amit is marketing KTM motorcycles, which are sports vehicles, and these kind of allow for a different kind of a situation in terms of the kind of occasion and experience that you can create. So over to Amit. Would like to know from you, Amit, how brand partnerships in a contextual environment, how an occasion-based partnership could really be relevant in today's context.
Sure. To start with, Dilip, I think if I were to talk about what an intrinsic belief is perhaps a little bit against the the flow of the subject today, and in a normal scenario, one would say that where customers have limited attention span and the market is getting more and more cluttered, I think it's very important for each brand to keep on investing and trying harder to maintain its identity and to try and set it apart from the rest of the crowd, because that's what's going to get you noticed in today's cluttered market. Having said that, there is no one way of doing things. And there are certain partnerships which are totally non-conflicting and symbiotic, and so just like the example that you gave of Amazon and the India Post, they have nothing to do with each other, and they benefit from each other. So that kind of thing is very much on. So in a KTM kind of context, KTM, as was introduced, is the fastest growing motorcycle brand in the country. It's known to make total racing motorcycles. That's what it stands for. So in that scenario, while we would probably totally focus on building the racing DNA of the brand, but having done that, if there is an opportunity to bring in other brands which are like-minded, and therefore helps anything that we do on KTM to just appear larger than what it could do on its own, yes, that's more than welcome.
So true.
There's variety of software products. They engage in with page by page. This is a new generation engagement will be happening on a brand partnership.
So I'm curious to understand, because why I don't find stories, whole books, and fiction created around brands and the stories. I mean, like we have enough examples of very strong marketing done through biographies, like you know what Richard Branson, for example, has done in terms of talking about the values that his airline stands for through his bio. So that we have seen. But what we haven't seen enough is stories which are woven around pure one brand, and then brand taking ownership of that. That's so you are not just part of the story, you are the story. We haven't seen enough of that. I think the digital environment is changing that, but the focus is a lot on yourself and not on, you know, brands per se. So Raju, coming back to you, I'm like, any thoughts on what is why this is not kind of taking shape the way it should? Because that presents a perfect opportunity to me in telling a great story about a brand, which probably people don't. But probably need to tell it like a thriller. You don't have to, if you're going to say that, you know, and for example, CSR stories, we see enough of these CSR stories, and we heard, you know, what presentations about, and you know, what great work is being done by certain organizations. But those stories are being told in a way and manner which people are very used to. So what kind of a partnership will fit in if your story is not exciting enough? How can you just rewrite that whole story so that it reads like a thriller? And a good story is a story which has a villain and a hero. I only see heroes, I don't see villains, and that's where the problem is.
Yeah, I think every time a new form of marketing has been born, the first use is what I call as crude marketing. So even digital, when it was born in 2000, you had all these pop-ups and all these banners that intruded all your private spaces to make sure that you were turned off from the internet. Now, most of the banners still exist, but they're very contextual. So if you're reading an article on, let's say, technology, you may see an SAP banner, right? If you are between the age group of 35 to 45, you know, a CIO, you may see an SAP banner. So that's just an example of, you know, how that has evolved. In the same manner, you know, the word of author advertising, so as to say, the new terminology that was discussed today, and what I would term as in novel insertions, right, or in novel placements, as you may call it. I think we are still at a very rudimentary stage. We are taking, you know, what used to be text link ads on the digital world, which pretty much died a natural death. You don't see highlighted text anymore within content, do you? Right? Not in the premium sites, at least. This is the same application of that to novels. My sense is, as marketers mature and as they realize that consumers are not lapping it up, they will find better, more intelligent, interwoven ways to have branding balance out with story, or I would say to have story balance out with the bit of branding that they want to do in integrated, right? Still, it's an art, it's not a science, and my sense is that even 5 years, 10 years from now, it will, 1 out of 20 brands will get it right, 8 out of 20 brands will get it as a disaster, and the rest 10 odd or 11 odd will be, you know, hanging somewhere in the middle. And it's always going to be that way. You know, even take television advertising, we've been doing it for decades now. Take print advertising, we've been doing it for decades. How many ads do you see that really make you sit up and take notice, not because it is bad, but because it's really, really good, right? So I think that's the challenge of marketing in general, and that will continue to stay in new platforms as well.
So, you know, what we see, clearly what I'm getting is that there is still, and keeping what you just said in mind, what we also find is that there is an overwhelming quantum of content out there, and
Correct.
people don't know what to do with that. I mean, like which one to consume and not to consume. And I think that is where experiences really matter. And therefore, coming back to Amit, you know, in terms of how do you, because yours is an ideal kind of a brand which is which can and which is kind of fitting into the genre of creating that experience, because racing is something, and it's all about, you know, of course, an age-appropriate kind of a stuff as well. Not everybody should be doing it, but at some stage or other in your heart, you want to be a racer. You want to get the thrill. So how is your brand looking at that, and how is your brand, you know, offering opportunities, and kind of this thing which
Sure.
can allow this.
Sure. I was actually waiting for you to ask me something like this, you know. And I will also take this opportunity to be the villain in your story.
Great.
You know, and I'll start that with sharing a video, and then I'll elaborate, you know, the point that I want to make. I have a little video by
Yeah.
KTM Orange Day. Can you play it, please?
Okay, once more, good evening!
So this is something called a KTM Orange Day, which is essentially an experiential marketing event. This particular thing that you saw is in the backyard of a certain mall in Bombay, in Vadala. And I mean, we do this dime a dozen. And I mean, the endeavor is really to move out of the the traditional mode of advertising, whether it is in television or in print, and but more to get into the consumer experiencing it. In fact, there was this quote by Sona, I think, about Confucius, that involve them and they will, what was it? Involve them and they will remember. Yeah, that was the one. So the, now in something like this, as a head of the business, it is extremely tempting for me to get in partners over here, so I mean, I could easily rope in a Red Bull as an energy drink partner, a Pirelli as a tire partner, maybe an Excite as a battery partner, and the temptation is really that it would just help reduce my costs. I mean, I think if I were to rope in 5 or 6 partners, and where I'm doing all the hard work of putting in this whole act, I can even end up making a profit out of it. It's like negative working capital working in another dimension. But till the time I can afford it, I would prefer not to have any partner. And because just like I was saying in the beginning, and that's where the my villain bit comes in, is in this cluttered market, if I have to fight it out with a Harley Davidson on one side, a Triumph on the other side, and there is a BMW there, a Ducati somewhere else. The more partners I add on, I may have a bigger scale activity, okay, but what is the message that I'm leaving the customer with? I will also acknowledge at this point in time that there is a slight difference in dealing with old world brick and mortar brands as opposed to new age online businesses and brands, and I think no matter which way the world goes, there is a place for both. People are going to drive motorcycles, they are going to consume soft drinks, so I mean they are not going to eat out of the internet, so therefore the brick and mortar stuff are going to stay. And for those, I really believe that the primary benefit of having partnerships is commercial. But if you can afford it, go your own way, establish your identity. In the long run, it's going to yield you benefits. So you will very rarely find, a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi or or an Apple or a Mercedes or to rope in partners, because in I'm not saying nobody does it. Yes, they do it once in a while. But by and large, the effort is to go your own way so that people understand what you stand for and they gravitate towards you.
Okay, so I think you've put a very divergent kind of a point. The McDonald's and Coke partnership is legendary. Pepsi and Pizza Hut partnership is legendary.
Apple and Nike.
Apple and Nike is a great example of how you can complement each other in a particular environment. So I don't think big brands at whatever stage you look at them have reached where they are today without partnerships. Harley Davidson, for example, one of my ex-clients was Zippo lighters, and so we were doing a certain amount of activities because these are kind of global partnerships which worked over years, which have succeeded, which has delivered, which have great ROI behind them. So is it more about getting to that inflection point where you have struck that goal in terms of, okay, this is the partnership that's going to work, because once that starts to work, you don't want to give it up. I'm sure McDonald's don't want to give it up their partnership with Coke, and nor does Coke want to give that up, because that is a big global business for them. Sure. So question here is that should it be brands who should be driving the partnerships, or should it be consumer? Because looking at what the consumer wants in an environment like this, what's the kind of stuff they would like to consume besides, of course, the product and the brand that you have to offer, besides the experience that you have to offer? Should that be calling the shots? And Kishore, coming back to you from a consumer insight point of view, should that be calling the shots eventually? Should we let, because yes, when we are brands, we also want to view consumers through our own filters, and we see that enough. Or should we let consumers dictate the show?
Yeah, actually, I'll take this trail of storytelling and then come back, because ultimately consumer itna bigar gaya, they will not listen to you the moment you say ad, to say shut, no, don't waste my time. So therefore you got to bribe them into something. You'll find that all brands, whenever they are telling stories, they are posing as if they are camouflaging themselves. They say, it's your story. Because, and story has also evolved. Earlier we used to read stories or listen to stories, and we used to see them in the amphitheater of our mind. So there is a whole lot of imagination. You need a whole lot of interaction between the storyteller and the consumer. In the next stage, story comes and being played out in front of you. It comes visual, 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 visual. So consumer is like a passive onlooker. That stage is also gone, because then he'll only say or dikhao, or dikhao, or dikhao, or dikhao. That's what is happening. At that stage it's very difficult to catch him, because he will drop his jaw and he wants a cartoon channel. Third stage, where the consumer sees where you can actually create attraction. Consumer says, can I be a part of that story?
Yeah.
So, that's what his brand was doing. It's not only giving consumer a bike, he said the drive. Do all those weird things you want to do. And then you talk about your stories. Then consumer becomes your viral agent. He will go and talk, I've gone and drove that K10 thing, and it's a beast. And you can do this, that, another. So that's the experiential stage we are getting into. Now in all these things, consumer need to be told that it is not brand, it is you who is driving. That's the trick of the trade. So once you tell the story at one moment and make him believe that this is story, but you are the king. Look at Piku. A film. All the media almost gang up to sell that film. You have the radio coming, you have the online coming, you have the television coming, you have got all the RJs, DJs, everybody is talking about Piku, 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 Piku. And all this, earlier, 20 years back, all you have to say is Amitabh Bachchan, Deepika Padukone starrer. That was good enough to tell the story. Today that's gone. They have to tell everybody, and in between brands are also saying, let's also take the advantage. Say, if you have got a problem of constipation, Ramcharan is there to take that problem. Then if you have a piku problem that you are overburdened with work, then you have your dudwalas, Madadi or Amul comes in and gives you, this is the complete nourishment, have a glass of milk and go on. So it takes, borrows from the main story, puts in, repackages its brand inside, and then puts it down. So it's gain for everybody. Consumer is getting the story, brand is getting their own story, and if it moves market, well and good. That's what we do.
Tech can do into that. Yeah, so I want to add to that, and I think it's also defined by the purpose it is being done for. On one side, technology is going forward. So when you see actually Piku movie today, you can have a IoT beacon, Internet of Things beacon. The same thing will come on your iPad and say, do you want to order one right now? So have a better morning tomorrow morning itself. Why wait? And the other purpose is, depending on, for example, I've seen in industry like ours, if I try to explain complex technology to someone and saying it works fast, it's really hard for people to get. They switch off. Right? But what we do, for example, in similar space, we have a partnership with McLaren. If I tell them, in an easy way, say, an average Formula racing car has about 380 sensors, right? And you know what? As he does his lap, this data gets captured real time, goes back to their back end where there are 100 engineers sitting and comparing it past 10,000 laps. And it comes back before the next turn and saying, given this weather condition, based on experience of last 10,000 laps, we should understeer a bit. And this gives you advantage. People get it. And they say, well, can I do this to my business? Of course, yes. Is it believable? Okay. In any case, I deal with very few direct customers. Okay, let me take you to the pit. Let me take you and make you hear how driver is talking to the back end. So that's the power of partnership. It's a question of context as well. But for me, that one customer is so powerful, they may make millions of dollars of decision. And they will not listen to big PowerPoint deck telling me all technology, business doesn't care. The moment he sees this, yes, is it really possible? They'll go back and say, can I do this tomorrow? So, there can be different lenses to partnership.
Yeah.
And I think it can be powerful.
No, absolutely. So I think, where you kind of coming together as brands, which are not competing with each other, but kind of supplementing each other's proposition, partnership works very well. There's no problem. It's the ideal kind of a partnership. Of course, you need to strike your balance and your own equilibrium between each of you. But what is interesting and what we heard today in the panel is the aspect of brands who may be competing with each other also coming together on thoughts and ideas where they believe they should be part of the conversations. It could be a mad race to be part of the conversation because you get missed out, something big is happening and you don't want to be not part of that. It could be simply that, or it could be something completely different which is driven from consumer, because as I heard a business leader saying that consumers are missionaries. They have a mission in life. They're chasing something. And they like to work with brands who are part of their mission. And each of us are missionaries. So who are part of their mission. And brands, when they are kind of part of their mission, you love them, you like them, you kind of build on them. It doesn't matter whether they're competing with each other or they're non-competing brands. So I guess with that, we like to open the session to questions from the audience to make it more interactive. So if you have questions from our distinguished panelists, random thoughts, we'll be happy to answer. And would you kindly just state your name and the organization and then pose the question, and also name the panelist you want to respond.
Ajay Sood from Confluence, and we in fact started a company 15 years back on the premise that collaboration is the way to growth, and so we named our company Confluence, and our baseline is collaborating for growth, and we don't have a product. We only bring people together and companies together and do promotions and marketing. So now the thought that what you were saying about having a product on our own. We should stand on our own, and versus having collaboration. So don't you think that the ego is one of the biggest problems? A man also has an ego, so that he says, I can do it on my own, I don't need anybody. Similarly, a brand also has a very big ego. And when we say that, I can do it together, I can do it on my own, the ego is coming in. What do you have to say about that?
What I believe in is, I didn't say that a brand can do it on its own. Or rather it should do it on its own. What I said is that if you can afford it, okay, do it on your own. Okay, now there can be circumstances, and they are often commercial, that it may not be possible to do it all on your own. So it just so let's say till the time specifically in the context of KTM, till the time, okay, my sales are growing, okay, I am generating a bottom line, and therefore I am being able to generate a certain kitty to be spent on marketing, and I can do it on my own, I would prefer to do it, okay. But that does not mean that, a time comes in the life cycle of every brand, okay, or every product, okay, where there is going to be tough time, there is going to be competitive pressures, okay, my sales may be under pressure, and at that point in time I may not have the resources, okay, to do something like this, okay, on my own, okay. In which case, if I have a choice of not doing anything for my brand versus doing something, roping in partners, even it means a little bit of dilution of what I stand for, I will go for it. Okay, so it is very situational and circumstantial as far as the approach is concerned. And so there is, every decision has to be on the basis of the commercial feasibility and what kind of image and what kind of aspiration you are building for the brand. So ego does not really come into the picture. You had another point which is I just missed out.
Which is the biggest issue? The two brands have big egos, and when we get them together, we find that's the biggest challenge. And when we work with them, we find if we ourselves don't have an ego, we have to kill our ego. Then we can get them together.
Sure.
So the ego is the biggest challenge between brands coming together. That's our experience.
Yes, I'll interpret it a little differently. So let's say, in this very event, okay, if we had a Red Bull also over there, okay, and both brands are trying to outshout each other, okay, to my mind, at the end of the day, both brands lose out and the consumer ends up confused, So that is something which one would like to avoid, okay. But there is no one way of doing things, and like I said, it's all situational and circumstantial.
Can I respond to this?
Yeah.
Just I would like to add just one more thing. I think ego will not come in the kind of brands which are not having a conflict of interest. For example, like I can only speak about literature. So you have a writer and you have a product to which you want the writer to play up, so quote unquote dress it up. So you discuss the salient features of that particular product. The writer has got no ego. He would like to dovetail that particular product in his narrative, and when 1 million copies get sold, the consumer is likely to see that and get impressed. So I think in this case, the ego will not come. But as you said, if there are similar brands probably who are competing in similar spaces or spaces where there are overlaps, that is where this ego thing might come. So in dissimilar.
Yeah, very quickly. So any more questions from the audience? Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Harshil Shah from Crossword Bookstores. I have a question for Mr. Kulpreet. There are avenues from script to screen. You see the likes of Chetan Bhagat, being made into movies, or Harry Potter. So what are the avenues or industries you feel now it can be replicated? So this is one just aspect which, so what you feel in future can be taken from the, as a print or book industry, and then it can be replicated, how your other, they are minting monies, they are making 100 crore clubs, by the movies. So that's the question for you.
Yeah, I think that there are a million possibilities. You know, for example, I can talk about my book. My book was launched last year in Singapore called Catching the Departed. And the central character of my book drives a particular brand of car. Now, I drive Swift, Maruti Swift car. And I was just wondering, can I give my character some other car? My copies sold about 10,000 copies. So imagine if 1 million copies get sold, probably I can partner with a particular brand of car. And this is a series of novel. My character, Andy Karan, is going to be featured in next book is coming out next month called The Girl Who Loved the Pirate. Now this is actually a 7-book series. So the same character is going to drive the same car, and if you have 1 million copies sold. Let us talk about Rick Riordan, that young adult Percy Jackson novels. You will find only Apple as a product, and that is more than 1 billion copies sold. So there are 1 million possibilities. You know, brand is fact, and a novel is fiction. So you have to leave the creatives to the author. Just there are many ways. Maybe a shaving cream, a particular brand of a shaving cream, or a holiday destination. You know, so there are many ways it can any best-selling novel can collaborate. I think.
Interesting. So, any other question?
Can I add to this?
Yes.
The only one word speaks out everything is inspiration. It is inspiring you. If it inspires a book, it inspires into the movie, and then goes on. Kind of thing. So one story which comes out as a white paper, a book, and then a story. We have seen J.K. Rowling's lots of things happening. When you go to any director or any producer in Mumbai, he talks about what is the content. And if the content is the king, every story hits, every movie hits. And then banks really ride on it. So what I see is more of piggybacking. It's not we piggybacking on a brand. It's brand piggybacks on the book.
Anybody else?
Yeah, hello.
We'll come
from
to
back. I am Aditya Gupta from Panamax Telecom Software Company. My question can be answered by any of the panel of judges. My question is simply that we are talking about marketing, we are talking about the brands, we are talking about the impatient customers. Why the customer blunt out on us, why we customers are so impatient. I believe, and don't we feel that for this we are the culprits, because when we communicate in our advertisement or any branding, we create the high value words, seamless product, or different kind of a branding taglines. But when the customer goes to in the store or on a buy the product, they experience something different what they expected from the brand, and that ended up with them to blast through the word of mouth or different marketing to blast on the brand that they are not up to the mark. Yeah. So is actually we are the culprit what we are delivering in our marketing communication, because we are delivering something in our marketing communication, we try to put the best of the best words, best of the best advertisement, and best of the best taglines. But when it comes to the experience the product, our stores or the sales team or actual of the product is delivering the same which we are communicating in our marketing.
Yeah. No, so let me paraphrase your question and make sure I understand it correctly. You're talking about a situation where brands are over-promising and over-polishing and over-glamorizing what they sell, but the product is really not delivering and causing a dissatisfaction.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm trying to asking, because we are the one who brand managers or the marketeers who create the branding or create the perceptions in the consumer mind.
So I think there is no answer to it. It fundamentally cannot be sustained. You can be the smartest marketer in the world, but if you are doing something which is inauthentic, it's not going to stay. In the earlier era, you could probably hold it for a longer time, but today that is almost instantaneous. I mean, you can see it to movies. So many movies get oversold before they go in. And then the moment people see half an hour, it's on Twitter and everywhere, and then next day nobody goes. It's same true for the products. You can show a larger car, more fancy looking thing. If it doesn't deliver, it doesn't work. So I think this actually has created a very wrong perception about the art of marketing itself. And which is what I think even in partnerships, and to add to your point, I think if you are not strong, you cannot partner. Partnership is between two people who are strong, whether human or brands, and who have mutual value for each other. See, if the brand doesn't have value, no fancy marketing in the world can take it forward. I think you have to have that value.
Sure. So in the interest of time, let's close this session.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, we'll have the day, to kind of keep discussing and asking more questions off the line. So clearly, just to sum up and taking on from the ego part, clearly, I think like it happens in all marriages, there are egos and there are clashes and there are issues. But if you follow the rules of marriage, then everything goes well. So it's all about, following the rules of entering into brand partnership. And that is exactly what we are going to delve in the second panel discussion, which we are going to have later in the day, in terms of what are the rules of the brand partnerships which we follow. Everything will just be fine like a perfect marriage. So thank you so much for all your time and attention, and